Good afternoon, President Moore. How you doing, David?
Great, President Botsford. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Today's June 20th, 2018. It's Rusty Duncan, and your tenure as president is coming to an end, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'd like to go back to the beginning and ask you to tell us a little bit about where you're born, where you were raised. Humanize yourself as if you were.
As best I can.
Wow, you can do it great.
Well, I was born in Carthage, Texas, and didn't spend a whole lot of time there. My dad entered the seminary to be a preacher shortly after I was born. Spent a couple of years in Houston before he entered the seminary. Then we wound up in South Louisiana for my elementary years, and wound up out at Mineral Wells for high school, and that's where I graduated from.
Okay. So what year did you graduate from high school?
79.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you graduated from high school, what did you do? What did you want to do?
I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I had known since, probably junior high that I wanted to be a lawyer.
How did you form that idea?
Well, there were some lawyers. I grew up in small towns, and the lawyers were, back at that point in time, they were pretty much, venerated instead of vilified, and had a lot of respect for them, and they seemed like that they were there for people, helping people, and that's what I wanted to do.
Helping people.
Yeah.
You certainly have done that. So where'd you go to college?
Went to Baylor, undergrad and law school. It's kind of weird, kids these days, they will spend a month or two going to different colleges trying to figure out where they're going, and I was always going to Baylor. My folks wanted me to go there, and I was certainly okay with it since they were footing the bill. I was lucky enough that they got me out of school debt-free, and appreciate them for that. But Baylor also had a 3-year program for lawyers. Back then, I don't know if they do anymore or not, but when you came in, there was a process where they would interview you and talk to you. If you knew you wanted to go to law school, there were a certain number of students that they would pre-approve for law school, pending your LSAT results and pending your GPA average as undergrad. But they would take out a year of your electives as an undergrad and let you into law school after your 3rd year. And I thought, well, that sounds like a good idea since my folks are footing the bill, and I'll try to get out as quick as I can. Went every summer and got out of law school and undergrad in a total of 5 years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's incredible that I got out of law school at all, but being able to do it in 5 years, I think my folks appreciated that.
Okay, so when you graduated from law school after 5 years, undergraduate and law school, which is very impressive, what did you do? What was the first job you had?
Let's see, the first job that I had was in Stephenville. Went to work for a lawyer there by the name of Gary Llewellyn. Gary was a real mentor of mine. He was as good a person, as good a trial lawyer as I've ever seen in the courtroom. And I was lucky enough to go there and work for him for 3 years.
Now, had you known him before you got out of law school, or?
I did not. Stephenville's close to Mineral Wells. It's 30, 45 minutes away down the road, something like that. So he knew some of the district judges that I had known growing up, and in fact, one of the judges called me about him and said, "I hear he's looking for an associate," and I knew I really didn't want to go to one of the big cities and get caught up in all that. I always thought I wanted to have more of a sort of a rural practice, and I was glad that door opened for me.
Okay, so how long did you work for Gary?
I think about 3 years.
What was the nature of your practice at your first year?
He did a little in small towns, especially the size of Stephenville. He did a little of everything. We did some family law, we did some plaintiff work, and then criminal law. And the criminal law excited me more than anything else. And when I went to Baylor, now law schools have clinics, criminal law clinics, and you have kids that are sort of seem to be training in law school to get out and practice criminal law. It wasn't like that at Baylor. I mean, Baylor was and still is heavy on the civil end of things, but I think I had one class at Baylor that dealt with criminal law. And so when I got out, Gary was an inspiration to see him in the courtroom, especially in criminal cases. And I just felt like I'd rather be trying a murder case than defending a deposition. It just drew me.
Okay, so you're 3 years in Stephenville with Gary, and then where did you go?
I wound up going back to East Texas. At that point in time, my folks had moved to Longview, and I had grandparents that were down the road in Carthage. I had great-grandparents that were in Carthage. So I got a phone call from my dad saying that, hey, I know somebody here on the commissioner's court or something. Apparently they've got an opening in the DA's office, and if you want to come back this way, you might want to come interview. So that's what I did, and then it gave me a chance to get back to where all my family was, and my family's, they're extremely important to me. So I went back to the DA's office for 4 years, and I worked for David Brabham there. He's now a district judge. He's retired. He's been district judge for 20-something years. And when I went in to see him, he offered me a felony slot from the beginning, and I'd already been defending murder cases at that point, and it worked out well for me. I was there for 4 years. And
you enjoyed it as a prosecutor?
I did. It was different. I did enjoy it. I tried to do the best I could at it, and won an award one year for being the drug prosecutor of the year for the North Texas region. So, I have mixed emotions about that now in hindsight, but I was pretty good at it.
Well, I know you were. I know you had to because of your intellect and your ethics. But don't you think that kind of laid the groundwork for you to go into criminal defense?
Oh yeah, well I'd already been doing that.
Right, with Gary.
With Gary, but what it did was it allowed me to, I guess, get a little exposure. I was trying a lot of the bigger cases. Judge Brabham pretty much gave me free rein handling the cases. He didn't try to micromanage any of his people, and he didn't try to micromanage me. And after 4 years, I told him I would try to be there for 2 or 3. I stayed 1 extra, and then decided to get out on my own.
So you went out on your own? Okay. Still in Longview?
Still in Longview, right. I remember, sitting in the DA's office trying to, figure out how many DWIs I'd have to have per month to walk in the door to, offset what I was making on salary. And moved across the street, went in an office with a guy named Joe Green, a good lawyer there in Longview, and kind of hit the ground running.
You've been a criminal defense attorney ever since, first day?
That was, 91, that's right. So
26 years?
26, 27.
Yeah, I'm math impaired, what can I say? Well, let's talk about, because I think this is important folks to know, you're married to a beautiful woman by the name of Pam.
Right.
And you've got great kids, 2 kids that I've personally met, but I know you've got a third.
Yeah, we got 3 boys.
Okay.
Pam and I were married, I guess, 22 years ago.
Congratulations.
And, thank you. And got 3 wonderful boys.
Excellent. Excellent. Jacob?
Jacob's the middle one. Casey's the oldest.
Right.
Casey is in California, lives out there with his wife. And then Jacob just started school at Rhodes College this past year. Went off to school not knowing what he wanted to be, and I told him, looking at the curriculum and stuff, I said, well, there's a mock trial course that you could take as an elective just for grins, and he did that, did well at it, made their travel team, and now he's saying he wants to be a lawyer. So
great.
That's
his dad's footsteps.
He'll be a sophomore at Rhodes, and then Mike is going to be graduating from high school this year, and I think, I don't know for sure, but I think he's leaning toward wanting to become a lawyer as well.
Most super. And I know Pam and Jacob and Micah will all be, the three of them will be here, right?
Pam and Jacob will be here. Micah's actually taking some college courses this summer, and he gets an extra 5-point bonus if he doesn't miss any class. And he says, hey, that's a half-letter grade, so love you, Dad, but I'd rather stay home.
Smart
with my
young man.
With the grandparents, so that's what he's doing.
Smart young man. Well, let me ask you why you, I know you wanted to help people. Is that really why you went into criminal law?
I would say probably the excitement of it, the drama of it. It just appeals to me. I've always been competitive. So I think it was a combination of all those things that led me to it. Plus, like I said, when I was working for Gary, he was great in the courtroom, great on criminal cases. We had a lot of fun when I was there with him for 3 years, trying those kinds of cases. And it just was the direction I wound up heading in.
Kind of hard to put into words what the two-word verdict does to you.
Oh yeah, nothing like it. I mean, nothing like it. Well, I don't know. Getting a Grand Slam in the World Series may be like it, but it's and because you're one of the greatest lawyers I've ever known, and so you know that feeling, and probably everybody here at Rusty knows that feeling. There's just nothing like it, to be able to have a citizen life in your hands, their life in your hands, relying on you, and in some way to be able to stand there in that moment of anticipation and hear those two words, there's just nothing like it.
Let me ask you about your best memory as a criminal defense attorney. Your favorite case, or the best case, or give us a feel for a case that you handled that you want to share for posterity's sake on this tape.
Let's see. Well, we have had a run of about 8 not guilties in a row on murder cases. So that's good, and probably, my favorites would probably have to come from those, some group of those. I had a lady sort of in the middle of that run that had been accused of murdering her husband back in '81, I think. Not accused of, she did. She killed him. I don't know if she murdered him, but she killed him. The local police knew that he was sort of a ne'er-do-well, and when they came out and investigated the crime scene, she told them that they'd gotten in an argument. He went for his gun, and she went for hers, and got hers first. And they took that face value and walked away. In probably mid-2000s, early 2000s, his brother didn't like the answer, and he was always in the ear of local law enforcement that they should reopen the case and look at it again. And I think probably just to get him off their back, they had the Rangers, cold case Rangers, look at it. A guy from San Antonio here got on a plane and went and found Wanda, and she was living in North Carolina at the time. And in the process of talking to her, she confessed to shooting him in his sleep.
Wow.
24 years later, and got indicted.
I can understand that with that
And,
confession.
we teed it up and tried the case, and there was a lot of backstory to it. The backstory was that she was beaten, terrorized, so were kids, and she did shoot him in his sleep. And we put on a couple of good experts. Fortunately, some of the law enforcement that were in leadership spots back in the early 80s were still alive, and they came to testify about, you know, how reasonable her fear was of him, and the jury acquitted her.
Excellent.
And that was a good one. That may be my favorite.
You know, confessions are so hard to overcome with the jury that's remarkable, David. You never told me that story. Why don't you share that?
That was a good one.
Yeah, battered wife syndrome's a good defense, but when you admit you shot him in the sleep, that's pretty
Right.
solid work.
Yeah, and then we've had other ones. We had a guy crash into another guy in a tractor in the middle of the field, get his pistol out and shoot him. We were able to get a not guilty on that case, self-defense, and some interesting cases. We had well, I'm not going through the facts, but the murder cases have been the highlights. So
They're certainly the riskiest case for the client, in my opinion, because you're facing 5 to 9 life or death, or sometimes capital murder. And so it's really on the line. What is your feeling about what the best defense is in a murder case? Is it that the son of a bitch deserved to die, or?
You know, yeah. I mean, in a nutshell, that is the good thing about murder cases. You know, I mean, you always have a hard time justifying possession or you know, other crimes, but in a murder case, there's a lot of times there's a reason, and if you spend time with the jury and you talk about them stepping into your client's shoes, and then you put on the story for them, they can understand why they did it, and that's what makes those cases easier in some ways than other types of cases.
What's your favorite part of a criminal case? You know, you pre-trial, the trial, which part of the trial? You're primarily a trial attorney. You don't
Right.
do a lot of
No,
appellate work.
I don't. We've been fortunate to have some good lawyers that work for us that did most of the appellate work for us, and so most of my time's in the courtroom. You know, I don't know. That's cross-examination. Everybody loves cross-examination. I like jury selection. But I guess cross, we all kind of like to get our stingers out and score points. And
Do you typically, and that typically is not a good word, but let me rephrase it. Do you feel that, what's the most dangerous time in a trial from your perspective? I'll ask you openly.
I mean, that's hard to say. The most dangerous time. You know, I guess when you start the trial, it's the most dangerous time. Your client's in jeopardy. Yeah, I can't, and you're probably the same way. A lot of times clients, you know, they get a little impatient. They want to know, you know, why it's been a while and why the case is still dragging out. I always tell them, I say, you know, as long as we're not in the courtroom, there's nothing bad that can happen to you. Okay? You know,
Not even I have lost a trial before they
yeah,
put the client in the
so,
court, right?
But the most dangerous time, you know, I guess probably the decision about whether or not your client testifies. That's always a toughie. So I'd say that, you know, trying to make the right call on that might be the most dangerous point in the trial.
I concur with that. I always die 1,000 deaths when I put a client on the stand and I passed him for cross. That's just, you know.
Yeah. You know, and, you know, should I, shouldn't I, you know, just,
Always a hard decision.
always tough, always tough.
Well, let's talk about TCDLA, because
Okay.
that's why we're here today.
Yep.
You're our outgoing president. You've done an exceptional job this year. You've had a lot of support from the staff and your executive committee. But let's talk about your history with TCDLA. Okay.
Joined in, you know, I might have been a member back when I was working with Gary. I think I was, but, you know, I know I've been a member since 1991 and forward. So 27 years with TCDLA, and certainly made me a better lawyer.
Who got you or alerted you to TCDLA, or had you heard of it before you joined? Or?
You know, I had heard of it before, and Scrappy and Otis Hill, both were kind of on me as soon as I left the DA's office, saying you need to join, and I'm glad they talked me into it.
Been a long run, hasn't it?
Oh yeah.
And I know you're going to continue to be active.
Right.
After any year, every president's entitled to a little sabbatical. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I plan on that, but I've seen you, and I've seen Stan Schneider and Mark Daniel and other presidents that stay involved in the organization, and that's what I intend to do. That's what I hope to do. In whatever capacity the future presidents will allow me to, I'd like to stay involved. I love TCDLA. I said that last year at the very beginning that I love this organization. Truthfully, I can never do as much for TCDLA as what TCDLA has done for me, because there's no doubt that I am a better lawyer. There's no doubt that my clients are better served because of the things that I've learned from the great lawyers inside of TCDLA. So I hope I can continue to give back.
I'm sure you will, David. I'm sure you will. What's your most memorable, great experience from the time you within TCDLA? What are your favorite memories?
Oh, my favorite memories are the friendships. The trips that we take together. The times I've spent with you and spent with Stanley, Mark, other people within the organization. The most fun memories are of our experiences together and the camaraderie that we're able to participate in.
It always recharges my batteries.
Oh, yeah.
Rusty always does. Every seminar does, every trip does. If law students were gonna watch this video, Dave, what would you say to law students that are in their first, second, or third year about the criminal law, and why they should get involved and fight the good fight?
I would tell them that they owe a duty to their client to be the very best that they can be, and you're not going to get there on your own. You're just not. I don't care how smart you think you are, how prepared you think you are for the courtroom, how talented you think you are. You're going to be a much better lawyer coming and watching and talking to these lawyers at TCDLA. I think most people recognize it. And I would tell those young lawyers to come to as many seminars as you can. The other thing I would tell them is I would go find some TCDLA member that would mentor you, that will let you go to the courtroom with them. Some of the best things I've ever done, I've stolen. We all have. None of us have invented. Well, I'm not saying none of us. You probably have.
No.
But most of us, we emulate people. We put our own spin on it, use our own style. But come get active, come get involved in TCDLA, and you'll be the better for it. And your clients are the ones that'll really benefit.
One of the things that young attorneys have told me through the years, because I go back to the dark ages, but I felt it myself. You come to a Rusty Duncan or an advanced seminar, and you feel a sense of inadequacy because these other people know so much more than you, and they're so much more talented than you. And I don't know if you ever felt any of that. I certainly have, but I think that's part of the learning process is dealing with those insecurities that we all have and manifest in different ways.
Absolutely, and some of us hide those better than others, those insecurities. But you'll get better. You'll be the better lawyer for it. And sometimes when you first start coming and getting involved in TCDLA, it can be a little daunting because everybody looks like they're all friends together. Everybody knows everyone. And I remember that feeling. I remember that feeling in 1991. knowing just a couple of people here and there. But get over it. Get out and shake some hands. And everybody here is friendly. We all want to help each other. It's easy to get involved. Just get out of your room. Don't watch Rusty on TV. Come down, shake some hands, go to some social events, and come get involved.
Let me just ask you to comment on your year as president. Anything that you want to say about that? You should feel free to share those memories or those inspirations or whatever.
Let's see. I can remember a year ago standing up in front of the audience at Rusty and telling them I was just going to try to keep us out of the ditch. And I think I've done that. You know, I would say we've probably hit some potholes along the way and maybe crossed the fog line a few times, but we've come out, I think, in a better position than when I started. We've had some personnel changes that I think, you know, I love Joseph Martinez. He was our executive director for 16 years, did a great job for TCDLA. Joseph left in February or January. Melissa Shank has become our new executive director, and I think she's going to be tremendous for TCDLA. So I'm proud that I was part of that process that was smart enough to look at what we already had and name her executive director. We have created some committees. Without going into all of them, we've got some new committees. There's a lawyer-client access committee that we've created where people, especially in rural areas, were having a hard time finding places to talk to their clients. They were being recorded in the jails. We've got somebody to take care of that. We had Hurricane Harvey hit early on in my presidency. We formed an ad hoc committee to help lawyers that were affected by Hurricane Harvey. Danny Easterlin chaired that committee for me. We were able to raise money. We were able to give a lot of scholarships and help folks that had lost everything in their office, replace their libraries. So I'm proud of that. I feel like you know, I've tried to improve our relationship with the court that has our grant, and dealing with folks over there. Tried to open up communications, maybe a little bit better than they were, and it's been a good year. It's been a challenging year. We've had more internal personnel issues, I think, this year than I can remember. But I've had a lot of help getting through it. And the executive committee, all the officers that are coming up, Sarah Rowland, our editor for The Voice, is on that committee as well. Audrey Moorhead, she's going to be leaving us for a time because she's become a judge in Dallas. She was on that committee. And then I had you and Stan Schneider on that committee, on the executive committee. Had a lot of help getting through the year.
You know, when I, years ago, you'd hear people talk about TCDLA being a good old boys club. And I'd just like to get your thought process about that, given your tenure. You don't go back to the dark ages like some of us. From your perspective, is that even a fair statement anymore?
I don't think it is. I am really proud of how far we've come, being more inclusive. We're not just a bunch of guys that sit around with cigars and scotch in the evening. You know, we have quite a large number of women that are in leadership positions at TCDLA. I tried to, on all of my committees, make sure that we had women in leadership positions, make sure that we had minorities involved in that process. So I think that TCDLA has become I guess, a more inclusive organization, and we're the better for it. And so I've heard that through the years, but I just don't think that that's true anymore. I think there's a place for everyone, regardless of their gender or their race, to get involved in TCDLA. And I'm proud of that, And I think that I've tried to advance that this year in my presidency.
And absolutely, from my perspective, David, and I applaud you for doing that, because diversity is so important, because otherwise we're going to crumble. How do you feel 3 days from stepping down?
I can remember last year watching John Convoy here this week. John was president before me. And every time I saw him, he was smiling. And now I know why. You know, there's a few days to go, and I can get back to just practicing law and paying more attention to my family. So I feel relieved in that sense. I'm anxious. I'm anxious because of the times that we seem to be living in. I'm concerned about societally where we're headed. I think that there are clouds on the horizon in our nation, and I just hope that TCDLA, I believe that TCDLA, that we'll rise to that occasion, that we'll continue to try to fight for justice. You know, one of the things that you do as president is you have to write articles for The Voice. You know, I always kind of lamented having that obligation, because just when you finish one article, it's time to write another one. I mean, you've been there and done that. I touched on some of my concerns and my fears for our nation in some of those. Politics, you never really want to talk about politics, but at the same time, the tone in our nation, the separation of people because of their race, because of the color of their skin, where they come from. Some of the loss of common decencies. I'm worried about that type of stuff. I'm worried that it'll spill over into what we do. I worry about prosecutors that run for office emulating some of today's politicians, turning the courtroom into an us and them, or us versus them type of scenario. So, you know, I worry about all those things. And one of I think my September article that I wrote for The Voice dealt with some of the things going on in the world in the 20s and 30s. And I just think that we need to have our heads on a swivel all the time, to use a football term, and see what's going on, and make sure that we, as an organization, as individuals, first of all, in courtrooms and representing citizens' views, but as an organization, that we're hyper vigilant about protecting the rights of the individual, regardless of the color of their skin or the nation of their origin, or how much, how thick their wallet is. I think we just really have to be careful and be up to the task, because I think we've got one coming.
Where do you see the future of TCDLA in 15, 20 years?
Oh, I think it'll be great. That's one of the fun things as president too, because you get to see the younger board members. You get to see folks that maybe in their, first stint on committees, different committees and stuff. And we've got some strong younger leadership coming up. So I am enthused about our future. I think that Melissa's going to do a great job as our executive director. We had Joseph for 16 years. I fully expect and hope that we'll have Melissa for a similar tenure. I think she'll do a great job. I think TCDLA is going to be strong. Now, I'll tell you that. I'll share this with you though. A conversation I had with our incoming president, that it's good to get the younger folks involved because they need to be involved. But don't forget about the old heads, because they've been there and done it through thick and thin. And I'm fixing to be one of them too. But I think that we have a lot to offer as well.
David, if you have any parting comments you want to leave for posterity's sake, this is the time to do it.
I just want to say that I'm proud of being a member of TCDLA. Betty Blackwell last year at Rusty was inducted into the Hall of Fame. I remember her speech, and she said that she never considered herself a general. She considered herself a soldier for TCDLA. That's the way I view myself. And I've enjoyed the year, and I want to continue to be involved.
And I know you will be, David, and I want to just say thank you on behalf of TCDLA for doing the job you did. It's not an easy job, as you know, but you carried yourself with distinction and honor. You did a wonderful job from my perspective. And I'm very seriously biased, as you know, but...
I appreciate that. I had a lot of help.
Well, the organization has just grown so much, you can't, if you try to do it by yourself, you can't.
Right.
So.
And let me just say one last thing. We mentioned my family and stuff, and I just really appreciate my wife and kids kind of putting up with me, especially this year, because the year of your presidency, you're just swamped. People don't know until you've been here. You know what it's like. I mean, you can be somewhere in the organization in some role of leadership, but until you're president, you don't realize that it's day after day after day, there's something that you're doing for TCDLA, and your family suffers. And they've been understanding, they've been supportive, and I just want to say thanks to Pam and the boys.
I know the association appreciates it, David. If you had kept time records, I bet you it was probably 1,000 to 1,500 hours this last year.
Yeah, it's hard to say. There's really not a day that goes by that I'm not doing something connected to TCDLA. And there's certainly times when we would have problems pop up where, it would be all that I would do for days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing, I've got two great law partners. Mark's a solo practitioner. Mark Snodgrass is coming behind me. I know that he's got an associate that works for him. I don't know how I would have done it without my two law partners, Greg Waldron and Jason Parrish. I mean, they gave me the freedom when I needed to. Last week I had to jump in the car on short notice and drive to Houston. There was an issue down there with the public defender's office in a meeting in Commissioner's Court, and I got in the car and hopped down there to testify in front of the Commissioner's Court. I couldn't have done that without the support of my law partners. And those types of things happen all the time. And I would have been remiss if I hadn't mentioned them and tell them how much I appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, my president.
Yeah. Appreciate you.
Love you.